Well, you can't win them all. Not quite all of them. The Cardinals fall just short tonight in game number 2 of the series against the Detroit Tigers. 5-4, your final score. This is the Cards Hub Postgame Show. He is Stefan Caray. I am Ethan Hannaford. And as always, the Cards Hub Postgame Show sponsored by Hot Shots and presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. As mentioned, 5-4, the final score in this one. Stefan, when you look back at this one, initial thoughts on tonight's ball game?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, out of the last 3 Cardinals losses, all 3 of them have come by 1-run deficits. So this team is competitive. They're playing hard. And it's difficult, right? Because as fans of the team, we want to see them continuing to win. You want to see them taking care of business through the first 2 games. But if you look on the outside, they score 11 runs last night. You can't expect that level of production again in back-to-back nights. If there was a game in this series that was the most likely loss for the Cardinals, it was this one. And they gave us an entertaining game. It was 4-0. And I'm sure for many fans, they were like, okay, this is where the Tigers are going to put their foot on the gas pedal and make us pay for yesterday's contest. But no, I mean, they fought back. They scored 4 unanswered runs. They retired 16 in a row going through the 8th inning. And then Kyle Leahy, who had a 114 batting average against lefties this season coming into tonight, just made not the best pitch to Riley Green, who had a huge night at the plate. So there's not much that you can really fault this team for. They're playing well. I'm interested to see how they play tomorrow because to me, they need to win tomorrow. They need to continue to play well and not let this stymie them from the momentum that they've built over the last 2.5 weeks.
So things kind of got to that point, right, where they were having to climb back in this one following a bumpy start from Eric Fedde, whose final line score tonight was 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 4 runs, all of them earned, no walks, 2 strikeouts. But Detroit was able to get to him pretty early in this ball game, 2 runs in the first inning, and it got started very, very quickly when Carpenter was able to send him deep on the 4th pitch of the game and put Detroit up 1-0. 3 batters later, it's 2-0 after Riley Green, who ended up, as you mentioned, having a really successful night tonight, singled in Zach McKinstry, who doubled 3 different pitches. All were hit very hard. That's been an area of struggle this year for Eric Fedde. The first inning, I think I saw his ERA in the first inning this year is 9. That is by far, and that was prior to tonight's game. That's by far the worst of any inning-by-inning breakdown. But Eric Fedde, not his sharpest stuff tonight. What were your thoughts on what you saw from the Cardinals starter?
Well, I'll give him credit where it's due. He got through 5 innings and kept the damage to 4 and gave the Cardinals a chance to come back and win this one. They stuck to their game plan offensively and found a way to rattle off 4 runs unanswered before the top of the 9th inning. Now, this is a very difficult conversation to have because, pitching to the tune of 6 innings, 1 run is difficult on any given night, but it's almost essential against a pitcher like Tarik Skubal. So you've got to find a way to keep those runs down, especially early. And this Tigers team, much to the chagrin of Eric Fedde, who has had his struggles in the first, have been really, really good through the first 3 innings of offense. They kept harping on it during the broadcast tonight. The Tigers have virtually led the league through the first 3 innings in terms of scoring in Major League Baseball. So that's a recipe for a lack of success for the Cardinals. Now, their offense with Ivan Herrera, with Nolan Arenado turning a bit of a corner, multi-hit games from both of those two. I think that's something that is a really big sign for this team. If you can get Arenado going, especially down that lower middle part of the order, they're going to score even more runs than they've been scoring. Now, I don't know what it's going to translate to this weekend against Arizona. I don't know what it's going to translate to in the bullpen game tomorrow, but you could just tell as they were walking into the clubhouse, there was a sour taste in their mouths. They were ready to come back to this ballpark and take advantage of an opportunity tomorrow in Game 3.
And there's no doubt that, there's 2 ways to respond in those situations, right? And, you could come out flat-footed after a deflating loss like that, or you can come out with some fire. And it'll be interesting to see which Cardinals team that we get. If I had to take an educated guess based off of what we have seen the past 3.5 weeks, I would go with the latter. I like the way that this team is playing. I was extremely, despite the loss tonight, I was extremely encouraged by the quality of play. Not because they were just able to come back, but what they were able to do in their later innings against Tarik Skubal, who is the best starting pitcher in the American League at least, coming off of a Cy Young Award in 2024. The Cardinals able to lengthen him out, and I believe it was the 5th inning where I think he threw well over 20 pitches in that inning, and the Cardinals working some deep counts, and they're able to chip away at that deficit. It all got started technically in the fifth inning, right, when Nolan Arenado was able to take advantage of the fielding mishap on the play prior. He hits a 2-run home run, moved down to the lineup just a couple of days ago, so I'm sure that situation right there for Arenado, perhaps a sigh of relief. But also, we know that he's a guy that has put a lot of pressure on himself in previous seasons, that he has to be the guy that is performing. I'm curious if he's putting that same amount of pressure on himself, seeing what the lineup has been able to do contribution-wise, and him also basically nominating himself to move down in the lineup. I'm wondering if that pressure is there, if that's perhaps alleviated a little bit tonight, because his at-bats looked pretty good tonight, and that was a huge at-bat to cut the deficit in half at that point.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of protection in this lineup. On any given night, you might have Ivan Herrera hitting before you. You might have Jordan Walker hitting behind you. You have some power if you need a big swing in front of you and behind you. So I think that'll help him. I think that he had 3 great swings. He had the single, he had the deep fly out to left center, and then, of course, he hit the home run. So he's starting to figure some things out. And as Mark Sweeney said on the broadcast, this is exactly the type of pitcher you would expect Arenado to have success against. Lefty, but Skubal is just something else. Outside of watching the postseason last year, this is the first time I've really had a chance to see what he's capable of doing. And the Cardinals, yeah, they had a lot of strikeouts, but you have to be disciplined. You cannot allow him to get in on your hands, generate weak contact, and get out of innings quickly. So yeah, you'll take a couple of 5-6 pitch strikeouts instead of taking the 1 or 2 pitch ground out. I think that's why they chased him out of the game after 5 2/3. That's something that Brant Brown has really instilled and imparted on this group, is that they have good game plans night in and night out. This was a great game plan. This was a well-managed game by Ollie. You put in your best reliever, arguably. You keep him extended for the 9th inning. He just didn't make the best pitch. But if anybody deserves some leeway, it's Kyle Leahy. So we're just going to scrap that and move on. And I think that really the biggest play of the night wasn't pitching or offense. Defensively, it was Trey Sweeney making the diving stop at shortstop in the bottom of the 6th inning with a chance to tie the game, almost threw out Ivan Herrera rounding third. If that ball gets into left field, the Cardinals tie the game at 4. Then they come up in the 7th, and you have Victor Scott come in to score. They have a 5-4 lead. If the score holds, then it's tied. You have a chance to walk it off in the 9th inning. So, this is certainly a game that you'd maybe like to see the Cardinals winning. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a 1-run loss. They played well, and they have a chance to go and rectify some things tomorrow.
So let's talk a little bit more about that 6th inning, because that's, like you said, that ends up being the inning kind of where it kind of came down to that, right? I mean, the Cardinals could have taken control from that point. They weren't able to do so, but they were able to chip away. They get it to a 1-run game with, once again, some small ball, something that we've seen them do plenty this year. They chase Tarik Skubal from the game, a base hit from Mason Wynn. He advances to second on the balk, and then Herrera with a phenomenal piece of hitting. I mean, we saw a couple of tough sinkers, I think 99 and 100 on the inside corner, and then he hits a fastball on the outer half to right field. I mean, talk about a guy that is just at his peak right now as far as just how he's looked up to this point in his career. Ivan Herrera, great piece, makes it 4-3, and then Jordan Walker with the infield single, the diving play from Sweeney, which it's funny, I didn't catch this on the initial call, but Joe Roderick tweeting, I'm assuming this was from your dad, Chip Caray, who said, and he quoted, Sweeney Trey, the demon barber of shortstop. I don't know if that was Joe saying that, or if that was Chip, or if he was quoting Chip from the broadcast. Either way, that cracked me up. I thought that was hilarious. It would be something your dad would say. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I know he made a comment about there being no relation to Mark Sweeney, considering the hair profile. So I don't know if he worked in the Sweeney Todd reference, but Trey Sweeney had struggled defensively. 6 errors coming into tonight. There was the hit to Wilson Contreras early in the game that really, you can't argue it as an error dependent because of the factors at play. There was no contact made with the ball, but not the best decision out in center field by Trey Sweeney. And then he makes the biggest play of the game. So I think that this is a Tiger club that is for real. Now, to your point about Ivan Herrera, people are wondering if this insanity run is coming to an end for the Cardinals. I don't think it's coming to an end for Ivan Herrera at the very least. I think this has been a large enough sample size to say that this is who he is. This is the type of hitter that he is because he's been consistent. He hasn't been slowed down by guys like Skubal. He hasn't been slowed down by guys like Nola or Skeens or whoever it may be. He's hit and he has delivered. So he is such a huge bright spot. You look to him every time he comes up to the plate to do something well. Now, tonight, there were a lot of opportunities for Pedro Pages with runners in scoring position. Bases loaded, ground out in the sixth that we were talking about. Then runners on first and second, I believe, was it the seventh or the eighth inning where he had the line drive into right center and a nice catch by Baez. So they're doing everything they can. They're putting guys aboard. This is such a fun team to watch, and it's such a different emotion for me watching this team as compared to a few weeks ago that you're punching a wall when they lose a close one because you know they're capable of winning it and you expect them to win. I can't say that was the feeling about a month ago. And now that is the feeling for every game is you expect this team to win. And that's such a really unique joy to be able to experience with this club.
So there are some people that are talking about, X was a little bit noisy about the decision to keep Pedro Pages in the game in the bottom of the sixth inning with 2 outs. Some people thinking, you have a guy like Alec Burleson, a lefty facing a righty that has been so good as of late, 8 for his last 15. The slug is back. People are wondering, why is that not a situation that you go to Burley in the place of Pages in that situation? What were your thoughts on the manager's handling of that situation? Do you like sticking with the Pages there? What are your thoughts on it?
So my thoughts are this: is that Pages has caught back-to-back days, and he's your everyday catcher, or the majority of the time your catcher, your starting catcher, your number one option. You have Joel Pozo going tomorrow, and you don't want to get him off the bench having to go in harness and manage a staff in a game like that where Pedro Pages is one of the better pitch callers in the National League. So I think that he made the right choice. I mean, you look at the numbers, and I'm not an analytics person. I'm not a metrics guy typically. I'm an old-fashioned baseball person. But you look at the numbers. Pages hitting well above 300 with runners in scoring position. You played the numbers game.
Yeah. And
Pages versus Pozo catching, you'll take that experience of Pages and what he's been able to do for this staff, for this bullpen. And by the way, he helped retire 16 straight. That's not just the pitchers that are doing that. So he kept them in the game. Yeah, he had some chances to do it with the bat, but Burleson came in a tight spot. He walked. They pitched around him. He didn't get a chance to make a huge impact, but I think that this was a well-managed game. I don't agree with the notion that this was Ollie Marmol's fault in any way, shape, or form. And again, this team is responding to the way that Ollie's managing. They are responding to it. So give credit where it's due. This was a tough loss against the team with the best record in baseball, and you lose by 1 against arguably the best pitcher in baseball. I think we have a lot of blessings to count. Now, if they want to have a different conversation tomorrow, if things don't go well for the Cardinals, then we'll discuss that when the time comes. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But this is just one loss, and losses are going to happen. Do you want to see them continuing to stack wins and play well against these types of teams, which they have done?
Joseph with another good point here, saying the 6th is too early to make that switch. You talk about a Cardinals team, right, that has been so strong in large part on the defensive side, on the pitching side, because of their high quality defense. It's no secret, right, that when you put Alec Burleson in, your quality of defense goes down in the outfield a little bit. He's made some strides, but Jordan Walker still is the better right fielder defensively right now. So I understand that decision as well. I get the frustration, the thought of, okay, well, it seems like an obvious righty-lefty situation, but I completely understand this decision as well. It's one of those things, right, where you can disagree, but I think you have to at least understand where the manager is coming from at this point. And you said it, a batting average over 300 with runners in scoring position, also an OPS over 900. It's not like these are just little dinky hits that Pedro Pages is having with runners in scoring position. This guy is driving the ball when there are guys on base, as we saw in the 8th inning when, that ball is hit slightly more to the gap. And this is a different there's a different story in this ball game now. It is what it is. But I think that because of that reason, I am okay with that. for a very similar reason as you just mentioned. The Cardinals, Kyle Leahy gets jumped on in the ninth inning after Steven Matz puts up several good quality innings. Talk about a guy that has been phenomenal this year wherever you need him. Steven Matz has been excellent. Kyle Leahy ends the eighth inning and then starts off the ninth inning. We had a question here from Jeremy right off to start the show saying, why didn't Helsley pitch the ninth inning? I think it's another situation, right, where you want to talk about your best pitcher. By the numbers, I'm not saying he is a better pitcher, right, but Kyle Leahy's been the best pitcher in that bullpen all season long. It's also not a safe situation. It's a tie ball game in the ninth. Normally at home, you would use your closer in the 10th rather than the ninth in a tie ball game. I'm not saying that there isn't a scenario where Ollie wouldn't go to Helsley there, but Ollie's made it pretty clear that Helsley is the guy that is going to go in when it's a save opportunity. In the 2 years that Ryan Helsley has been at his best, that is the position that he has been in. When it's been a consistent performance, a consistent role for him, I'm very okay with that situation as well. If maybe it's a different story if you're sending Roycroft or John King out there. They weren't. They were sending by far their best bullpen piece this year out there in Kyle Leahy. And like you said, he got beat. That's going to happen. It's part of the game. You tip your cap and you go out and you play tomorrow. That's my thoughts on it. Your thoughts, Stefan?
Well, Kyle Leahy's not a one-out reliever. That's the point. Is you don't want to burn him for just one out when you have a leverage opportunity with a guy that you're still trying to see what he's capable of doing. Now, who's to say that Ryan Helsley comes in and shuts the door? Who's to say that he doesn't give up the lead or give up the tie, I should say? And if you look back at some of the managerial decisions for the Cardinals in tie ball games, they've typically gone away from going with Helsley. They like him as the closer. They like him in those spots where they have the lead, trying to protect the lead, get the win, and get the save. So they're not doing anything that's unfamiliar. Leahy has been so good at getting the first man in innings. He's been so good. And that's really, I think, where things unraveled. If you get the first man and Green doubles, you're probably still going to get out of the inning with Leahy. If you allow the first man aboard, that's when all the pressure starts to mount. And if you've watched Helsley this year, he's been great, but there have been a lot of outings where he's been shaky, where he's given up a hit on that first hitter and allowed that base runner to get aboard. So I don't know if even with the personnel change and the experience of Helsley, if the result would have changed. I trust Kyle Leahy implicitly. It appears that Ollie Marmol shares the same opinion as both of us do. So we'll see. And it saves Helsley for tomorrow. So if the Cardinals can build a lead, that'd be great. It'd be even better if they build a big lead and don't have to use him and can use Romero, can use King, can use Roycroft or whoever else is in that bullpen to get a win and then keep everybody well rested and fresh for a tough series against Arizona this weekend.
I'll say this: it wouldn't be the worst thing if they had to use Helsley tomorrow. One of the conversations we've seen with him, right, is the rest versus rust, and at times it looks like he's adjusting to being back on the mound. Now that's part of the role. That's part of the closer role. You have to be able to adjust, and sometimes it's going to be 5 days in between times that you're out there, depending on the team that you're on. That was not the case last year. It worked out for him, but you're going to have to be able to adjust. We've seen when he goes, 4, 5, 6 days between appearances, at times it tends to be something that he has trouble dealing with. So I only say that to say that, even in a situation tomorrow, perhaps where they do have a 4-run lead, a 5-run lead, I'm not against using Ryan Helsley just to keep him fresh. Now, with that being said, you just said it. You got 3 big games coming up this weekend against a very good Arizona Diamondbacks team that you're similar to the last several series that you played. They're probably going to be competitive and in large part close games. So there's so many different ways you could go about it. It comes down to game scenario, what makes the most sense. And let's hope that the Cardinals are in a position, right, where they're even considering that they have to use them tomorrow and can put away this series against the Tigers, what would be their, I believe, 6th straight series win. This is the Cards Hub Postgame Show. He is Stefan Caray. I am Ethan Hannaford. The Cardinals dropping tonight's game against the Detroit Tigers by a final score of 5-4. As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the Cards Hub Postgame Show is sponsored by Hot Shots here on Sports Hub STL. Sports Up and Hot Shots inviting you to come out to their St. Charles location on Sunday, June 1st to celebrate their 35th anniversary. The fun starts at noon with a parking lot party featuring the Budweiser Clydesdales. Prizes will be given away all day. There's a dart tournament as well at noon, a bags tournament at 2, plus a chance to win Hot Shots tacos for a year. Boy, what you could do with Hot Shots tacos for a year. Congratulations to Hot Shots on 35 years. Hot Shots, St. Louis's home for all the games, all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. Once again, he is Stefan Caray. I am Ethan Hannaford. This is the Cards Hub Postgame Show on Sports Hub STL as we continue moving forward here. We mentioned it for a second, but I want to harp once again on Steven Matz in the role that the job that he did tonight. Boy, it's hard to categorize him because he has done so many different things this year. It almost reminds me of how they used Matthew Liberatore last year, except I feel way more okay using Steven Matz in this position, right? Because he's not a guy that you're saying this is a guy that's going to be contributing for our team down the road. And Matz has also, I think, understood that, there wasn't a guaranteed starting rotation spot for him this year. And he's being very much so a team player right now, doing what he can to help this team out. And the biggest difference between him and Liberatore, right, is that no matter where he is getting opportunities at in 2025 compared to Liberatore in 24, he is executing. He was excellent tonight. And I forget how many they said. I think he put down 8 straight batters tonight in his time in relief. What were your thoughts overall on Steven Matz and just how impactful he has been for this Cardinals team in 2025?
Man, he's going to get paid. I mean, he is going to get paid. And you look at him as a guy that was a really big question mark this year. Injury concerns. He's been healthy as a horse. He's worn a lot of hats. They've stretched him out in relief because they want to keep him available and keep him capable to start if need be. And not to suggest that they're making any wrong choices with him, because they aren't. But you look around and Steven Matz is probably in the middle of most rotations in Major League Baseball with his numbers as they currently sit. The Cardinals have just had the luxury of having really good starting pitching. I wouldn't change a thing right now with the rotation, and I wouldn't change a thing right now with Steven Matz. Yes, you've had the conversation about Michael McGreevy and should he be up here? Will he be up here? Those are questions above my pay grade. But right now, the starting rotation has looked as good as you could have hoped. And Steven Matz has been, at certain points, a facet of that, but also has helped stabilize this bullpen and to eat innings and to eat outs. That's something that he has needed to do and the Cardinals have needed. And you don't get to this type of stretch of games without a guy like Steven Matz. I don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow with Palante. He has back-to-back starts with 7 or more innings, back-to-back wins. You hope that he can continue that trend, but the Tigers getting a little bit more momentum offensively, especially after a win today. They're trying to stack some wins ahead of a big divisional series when they get back in town. That's why Flaherty isn't pitching at a place that he knows so well, which is honestly a fortuitous thing for the Cardinals when you look back at what Flaherty did to them last year at Comerica Park.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really, really fun game to watch. And with regards to Steven Matz, he's been one of the MVPs of this team, silent MVPs, certainly.
31,000 peeps in attendance, or closer, I think, to 32,000 peeps in attendance tonight. Stefan, are fans buying back in? Are they back invested? I mean, it's a Tuesday night. I would say that perhaps Skubal pitching tonight has an impact, but I don't think it does because Paul Skeens pitched just a couple of weeks ago, and there was 20,000, 22,000 people in attendance. So I think this has more to do with rather than anything with the way the Cardinals are playing as of late. Your thoughts?
They're the B-Fibs. They're the best fans in baseball. And if you give them a product worth spending their money on and coming downtown to watch, they will do it. And that's exactly what the Cardinals have done. I'm not saying that last year they weren't a good team. They were a decent team. They were an average team, 83 and 79. But I think we all can agree they weren't playing up to the Cardinal standard that people in the Show Me State have come to know and love. Now they're doing that, and hopefully it continues. Hopefully they continue to pack out that ballpark. If you aren't buying into this team, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you because there's a level of ambivalence to being a fan of a baseball team, right? You love them at some times, you hate them at others. But the pure amount of excitement, stress, positive and negative anxiety that comes with watching a good team and being invested in a team. And I think we're going to see more of that, especially as the Diamondbacks roll into town with some of their headline stars like Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll.
Muted again, back-to-back episodes that I've done that. Unbelievable. I got to pick it up here. He is Stefan Caray. I'm Ethan Hannaford. This is the Cards Hub Postgame show. And as mentioned just a moment ago, sponsored by Hot Shots here on Sports Hub STL and presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play. $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Final score tonight, 5-4. The Tigers defeating the Cardinals in game number 2 of the series. I had a friend in the in post game tonight, hearing Ollie Marmol's thoughts. I wanted to get back from him what exactly his comments were. I assumed someone was going to ask about the decision to stay with Pages in the 6th. This is not a quote, but this is what was sent back to me, basically saying that decision, along with some others, is going to keep him up tonight. Said specifically leaving Pages in the 6th. He felt at the moment they'd have more chances offensively, and Pages is too valuable to take out at that point in the game. It's so early. I understand it. I get both sides of it, but I know we already talked about this, so we don't need to harp on it that much more, but I get it. I mean, there's going to be so many situations in the hindsight where you're able to pick it apart after and say, well, if this would have gone that way, if that would have gone this way, but I mean, it goes to show how highly they value Pedro Pages and the work that he is doing right now for that pitching staff, being the captain of the defense behind the plate. And you know, a lot of people would say, you know, they have other options. They have Ivan Herrera. They have Joel Pozo. Clearly not at the same level that they view Pedro Pages right now behind the plate.
Well, and Pages is a serviceable bat, right? He's certainly not a slouch. He's not a 190 defense-only catcher. He's a guy that has had some big moments, homered last night, for goodness sake. So I think Ollie's being a little bit hard on himself. I can understand that. I love the accountability. I think that comes with a manager that has now seen this team shift and wanting to win every single game and keep that momentum going. But he's got to give himself credit where it's due, in the sense that this team came back and got back into the game because of his decision to go with Steven Matz as early as he did, because of some of his decisions to stick with the game plan against Skubal. And you're setting yourself up nicely tomorrow. They're giving you an opportunity with a bullpen game. You get Skubal out of the game after 5 2/3, where he's typically a 6, 7, 8 inning pitcher. You force their bullpen to work more than they would have liked in this one, giving way for a big opportunity tomorrow. So I think he just needs to flush this one, try to win tomorrow. And again, that wasn't the reason why they lost the game. There were going to be more opportunities. There were more opportunities. Both came for Pages. Unfortunately, just didn't cash in. Baseball's a cruel game at sometimes, but the other shoe's got to drop for the Cardinals eventually. This is an unprecedented stretch of wins. You hope it doesn't go catastrophic the other direction, but you're not going to win every single game. And even though we're getting used to them winning every single game, there are going to be games like this where you drop. And fortunately, it wasn't a 10-0 morale-killing blowout. They fought, they scratched and clawed, and found a way to make it, a 1-run loss and even tie the game at one point.
The Tigers use 4 pieces from their bullpen tonight. I believe they used 4 last night as well. So that's a good point to consider going into tomorrow's game, which will be starting at 12:15. Andre Palante facing off against Brant Herter. He will be the opener tomorrow for the Tigers. So far on the season, a 1-0 record, a 2.35 ERA, and in 23 innings thrown out of the pen. And you mentioned it at the beginning of the broadcast. It's a tough one to swallow for a team, right? Considering the way that they lost the game. What are your thoughts going into tomorrow, the way that this club approaches it? Do you think that there is concern for them to come out flat-footed? And attached with that, how much standing watching are you doing at this point in the season? Because right now, there are a lot of people harping. The Cubs do have an easy schedule right now. It is an opportunity where the Cardinals, have a much more difficult schedule. It is a challenge to keep up in the standings, but also it's May. So how do you balance out those two when you combine it all together right now, Stefan?
Well, I think that again, the Cardinals have a difficult part of their schedule. The Cubs, you got to give credit where it's due. And April played one of the toughest months that any team has played this season, and they came out swimming rather than sinking or treading water. And now they get a chance for the schedule to loosen up and lighten up. But they're against a frisky team like the Marlins. They beat down on them with a huge inning late. I believe they scored 8 runs in I think it was the 6th inning tonight. So the Cubs are going to be a good team. You just don't want to see the Cardinals spiral within division. You don't want to see them drop back to 5-6 games again and have to cover that ground against a team like the Cubs. If you stay within 3 games after this 2-week stretch, I consider that a win. If you're in first place, I consider that a tremendous win because the Cardinals' schedule is also going to loosen up at some point. They've kind of had easier series nestled in between very difficult ones, right? So you go Mets, Braves, and then you come back and you have the Reds or whoever it was that they played early in the year. You have some teams that are struggling, but then you go play teams like the Phillies after you play the Nationals. Then you've got the Royals. Then you got to just continue to find a way to win ball games, and they've done that. Standing watching, it's only important to me because unless the Cardinals are 12, 13 games above 500, and again, this is just a sort of a prediction looking around,
sure,
you're not going to make the wild card. And that might be too aggressive of a take. I don't know what's going to happen to the Diamondbacks or the Padres, the Phillies, but those are some teams that are going to have, 7, 8, 9, 10 game above 500 records and be wild card teams. So the Cardinals have to sort of match pace with that or win their division. And I'm not saying that either is impossible because this team is proving people wrong, but they've got to stay in the hunt, and you can't fall back and you can't falter and have, the record that you had through the second 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the month of April. You got to just continue to play the way that you've been playing.
Yeah, very well said. I think that my only disagreement would be, I think that to a certain, I think, in my opinion, you don't even get to that point, right, where you're getting into the standings watching until perhaps a little bit later in the season. I think that the first point, I think, to quote Claib's Flag Day, right, that's his day with a first evaluation checkpoint to kind of see where you are, take a gander around. But for me, I think I would say even a little bit further out. I'm looking more so probably late June, maybe as late as July 1st. And the reason that I say that is because once you get to July 1st, right, you're within a month of the trade deadline, and you have to start getting an idea of what the odds are. Where does it make sense? You have to start figuring out, are you going to buy? Are you going to sell? But at this point, if the Cardinals keep doing what they're doing, which is putting their noses down, right, and playing good ball, sticking with the preparation and the consistency that they have had all season long, I think that they're going to be okay. I think because the Cubs are in this easier part of their schedule, the Cardinals are not. Naturally, it would make sense if the Cubs gained a little bit of distance right now. Is it harder to make that up? Absolutely. But at the end of the year, the schedule balances out through 162. So at this point, I don't think I'm nearly as concerned about what the schedule looks like. What the standings look like. I think the players would probably tell you the same, but I've never been in that clubhouse as a player, so I can't speak to that for sure. You put your nose down, you keep playing the ball game, and good things happen. That's just my thoughts on that personally. But either way, the consistency remains, and I think tonight is a great example, especially of the way that they fought following being down 4-0 when nobody expected them to get back into that ball game. That tells you a lot about what this Cardinals team is. The 2024 St. Louis Cardinals, that game's over. that game is over. Perhaps even the first couple of weeks of the season, St. Louis Cardinals, that game is over. This tonight, I think, is proof, regardless, that this team is different. And that's a good baseball game tonight. That's a fun baseball game that I enjoyed. Would you like to win? Absolutely. You're not going to win them all. The 13, I'll take 13 out of 16 any day of the week, Stefan.
I totally agree. And again, that's more of a cynical approach. In my approach is a little bit more cynical in the sense that you don't want to see this team give up a golden opportunity, right? Sure. Being 2 games out of first place. But nobody expected a month ago that they would have a 13 out of 16 win stretch. So a lot of people were ready to mail it in and say, hey, this team is just another bad team, another young team that's incapable. That's just not the truth. So if they can do it now, they can do it later. They can do it at another point in the season if they do need to cover ground. They might not need to cover ground. This team might end up continuing what they're doing, continuing to be consistent, have a great month of June, and then be in first place in the NL Central division moving forward. Now, whether that happens or not, it all depends on the product on the field, but they have shown us no reason to believe that they won't continue to do this. Like you said, is that you're starting to get to know what this team is. It's not the first 3 weeks of the season where you can see teams like the Angels go on a fluke run and then the baseball gods kind of bring you back down to earth. The Cardinals had their struggles early and now have figured it out. They have now figured it out. They're not catching teams off guard anymore. They're not catching teams in a stretch where they don't know who they are as well. So everybody pretty much knows their identity within Major League Baseball, and the Cardinals have a pretty dang good one right now. So I think that's really all I've got in terms of tonight's game. Hopefully they can come out and win tomorrow and make it 6 straight series wins, and I think we'll all go home very happy ahead of a huge series against the Diamondbacks, which to me is of tremendous nostalgic value and importance. But we'll see how it all goes.
Couldn't have summed it up any better myself. Very well said there, Stefan. Tomorrow, 12:15 start in the rubber game. Palante versus Herder. St. Louis looking to win, as Stefan said just a moment ago. Their 6th straight series would be their 14th of 17 as well. He is Stefan Caray. I am Ethan Hannaford. This has been the Cards Hub Postgame Show. We appreciate all of you joining, and be sure to join in the morning, the Randy Carricker Show, and then Cards Hub 365, and eventually the postgame in the afternoon as well. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a wonderful evening.